Black Hollow is a quiet town until the fog rolls in. With it come the whisper soft, chilling, and hungry. Caleb Foster thought they were just the wind until they spoke his name. Tonight, we uncover the chilling tale of the whispers in the fog, but be warned, some whispers should never be answered. The fog rolled in thick over the small town of Black Hollow, swallowing the streets and houses in its ghostly embrace. It was the kind of fog that seeped into the bones, chilling not just the body but the soul. People knew to stay inside when the mist arrived, locking their doors and shutting their windows tight. But nobody ever said why. Nobody spoke about the whispers. Caleb Foster had only lived in Black Hollow for a month. A journalist by trade, he had left the chaotic city behind, seeking solitude and inspiration for his first novel. The town had a quaint charm, with its cobblestone roads, its century-old buildings, and the ever-present mist curling between alleyways like fingers searching for something lost. On the first night the fog came, Caleb was sitting by his window, staring out into the swirling abyss. He thought he heard something, a voice, distant and muffled, like someone speaking from behind a thick wall. He shook his head, dismissing it as the wind playing tricks. Then the voice came again, clearer. "Closer, help me!" Caleb's breath hitched. He turned off his lamp, pressing his forehead against the cold glass. The street below was deserted, just the street lamp, flickering as if struggling against the thickening fog. He squinted, a shadow moved beneath it, a figure unmoving, watching. A chill raced down his spine. He stepped away from the window, heart hammering. But curiosity gnawed at him. Maybe someone really needed help. He grabbed his flashlight, threw on a jacket, and stepped outside. The silence was suffocating. The fog muffled every sound, wrapping around him like an unseen predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He took slow, deliberate steps toward the street lamp. The figure was gone. But something lingered, a feeling, a presence. "Help me!" The voice came from behind him. He spun around, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the fog. Nothing, just swirling mist and the empty street. He swallowed hard, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Then something brushed past him, a whisper, featherlight against his ear. "Run!" Caleb didn't need to be told twice. He bolted for his house, slamming the door shut behind him. He double-locked it, pressed his back against the wood, and listened. Silence, but the air felt heavy, charged with something unseen, something watching. He barely slept that night, his mind replaying the voice over and over. The next morning, he went to the local diner, desperate for answers. He found them in an old man named Arthur, who had lived in Black Hollow his whole life. When Caleb mentioned the whispers, the man's face paled, and his spoon clattered onto the table. "You heard them?" Arthur asked, his voice barely above. "A whisper." Caleb nodded. "What are they?" Arthur glanced around as if making sure no one was listening. Then he leaned in. "They were once like us." "What do you mean?" Caleb pressed. Arthur sighed. "A long time ago, this town was built over something dark. A place where things were buried, forgotten. The fog calls them back. The ones who never left." Caleb felt a cold sweat break out on his skin. "And the whispers?" Arthur's eyes darkened. "They want to be heard, but some want more." That night, Caleb kept every light on in his house. He tried to ignore the fog creeping against the windows, the way it seemed thicker, heavier than before. He buried himself in research, reading old newspaper clippings and records. The town had a history of disappearances, people vanishing without a trace, always on foggy nights. Midnight came, and so did the whispers. Caleb, his blood turned to ice. The voice had never said his name before. Slowly, he turned toward the window. A shape stood outside, barely visible through the mist. His stomach clenched. It was Shame. A perfect reflection, same face, same clothes. But its eyes, they were hollow. The figure raised a hand, its fingers pressing against the glass. Caleb stumbled back, knocking over his chair. The whisper came again, stronger, more insistent. "Let me in." The lights flickered, the air turned frigid. The whisper became a chorus, voices rising from every corner of the room, their words an endless chant. Let us in! Let us in! Let us in! Caleb squeezed his eyes shut. No, you're not real. The whisper stopped. The silence was worse. He opened his eyes. The figure was gone. The fog had thinned. But something told him it wasn't over, and he was right. The next morning, his reflection didn't move when he did.